The house looked the same. White shutters, porch swing, the faint smell of something baked earlier still lingering as we stepped through the door. But even before my wife and I crossed the threshold, I could feel the chill. Not from the weather, it was a mild Sunday evening in Virginia, but from the familiarity of what was coming. I'd been here too many times before. Inside, everything was set. The long oak table gleamed under the chandelier, plates perfectly aligned, wine already poured. It all looked so welcoming, like one of those catalog spreads. But I knew better. This dinner had always been more theater than warmth. We were a few minutes late. My fault. I hesitated in the car. My wife had squeezed my hand as if to say, "You've got this." She always said that, and every time it meant more than she knew. As I walked in, I could feel it, the subtle shift. No one said anything, but the glances, the tightened lips, they were all part of the script. My father, seated at the head of the table, raised his brow as if to say, "Finally decided to show up." We took our seats. I was next to my wife, across from my sister. She looked elegant as always, confident, composed, the golden child. Dad made sure to pour her wine first. The meal started the way it always did. Small talk about traffic, weather, someone's neighbor remodeling. Then came the shift. It always did. Dad leaned back, fork in hand, and with a tone meant to sound casual but cut like glass, he said, "So, Emily just got that national award for her firm's performance. Can't say I'm surprised. She's always been the one who actually delivers." I kept my eyes on my plate, chewing slowly. He wasn't done. He turned his eyes toward me now. "Not everyone's cut from that cloth, huh?" He chuckled. "You've always been more of the ideas guy." Someone snorted. I couldn't tell who. My sister looked down into her glass, not saying a word. The thing is, it wasn't just the words, it was the way he said them, as if he'd just shared a funny story at a party, like I should laugh along, like it wasn't the 100th time he'd diminished me in front of people who claimed to love me. I felt my wife's fingers slip under the table, gripping mine. She didn't say anything. She didn't need to. And still he kept talking. "You know," he said to the table, "some folks need a little more push, that's all. They'll catch up, eventually." I didn't look at him. I didn't look at anyone. I was 13 again, standing in the garage holding a science fair ribbon while he told me real men win trophies, not participation awards. I was 17, handing him my college acceptance, only for him to ask, "Did your sister get in too?" I was 25, offering to help manage the family business books when things got tight, and he laughed and said, "No offense, son, but you're not really the fixer type." And now I was here, 38, married, not broke, not lost, and somehow still expected to sit quietly while he tossed out barbs like they were hors d'oeuvres. But this time I didn't crumble. I watched. I observed. My sister, quiet, eyes avoiding mine. She knew better. She always knew better. My mother, distracted, acting like she hadn't heard. She never wanted to pick sides. The others, fidgeting, awkward. And Dad, still holding court like nothing happened. I didn't say a word. Not because I was weak. Not because I didn't know what to say. I was saving it, choosing when to let it out. This wasn't silence out of surrender. This was restraint, strategy. Then, my wife, she cleared her throat, calm, collected. "Well," she said, her voice soft but firm, "we've had a good week too. We just bought your company." It landed like a dropped plate. Clattering silence. Every fork froze midair. Dad blinked. "What?" She nodded. "The merger went through last Thursday. Paperwork's filed. Board approved it. The firm I co-founded led the acquisition." The words didn't come out gloating. They came out like numbers in a spreadsheet. Precise, cold, undeniable. My sister looked up, stunned. My father leaned back slightly, confusion on his face, as if the math didn't add up. My wife kept going, just enough. "Your CFO's staying on through the transition. There'll be minimal disruption. It's a clean handoff." No sarcasm, no smugness. I stayed quiet. Let it sit. Let it sting. Dinner didn't end right away. People tried to keep eating, but the taste had left the food. I stood first, picked up my jacket, nodded thanks to no one in particular. My wife followed. In the car, we didn't speak. No music. Just the sound of tires rolling over the same roads I'd driven since I was 16. I looked in the rearview mirror and saw the house fade into the background. That place, that table, that man. He wanted me small, I finally said. That was his comfort zone. My wife didn't respond. She didn't have to. I wasn't angry. Not anymore. That dinner didn't break me. It just reminded me who I wasn't going to be anymore. I didn't sleep. Maybe 2 hours, maybe less. I lay there most of the night, staring at the ceiling, listening to the faint hum of the HVAC and the occasional creak of the house settling. My wife didn't ask anything. She just reached for my hand once or twice, then let me be. That was her way. She didn't need to fix it. She knew I needed space. By the time the sun slipped through the blinds, I was already sitting in the home office, coffee cooling on the desk, laptop open in front of me. I'd meant to write something. A letter. A plan. Maybe even a resignation from the advisory role my father kept dangling over me like a bone. But the screen stayed empty. The cursor blinked. And I just sat there, playing last night over in my mind. Especially the part where my wife dropped the news about buying the company. Was that the moment they saw me? Or was it just her? Just the deal. I rubbed my eyes, stood up, walked toward the closet, looking for an old portfolio I hadn't touched in years. Half an hour later, I was pulling dusty boxes from the attic. I wasn't sure what I was looking for, maybe just something to prove I hadn't imagined it all. Then I saw it, a box labeled Dad's Papers, sloppy handwriting, probably mine from when I was a teenager, helping him move files. I opened it, and right on top was a leather-bound journal, the kind he used to keep in the study. I remembered him jotting things down in it after meetings during family events. For legacy, he used to say. Flipping through, I expected financial notes, maybe ideas. Instead, I found pages, dozens of them, dedicated to my sister. Emily's 4th grade math award. Emily's first summer internship, law firm. Emily shows natural leadership at 16. My name was there, but only in passing. Chris, scattered focus. Needs more structure, too soft for leadership, and one that hit harder than I expected. She'll carry the name forward. He'll likely drift. I closed the book and just sat there for a while. This wasn't accidental. It wasn't just a father who favored one kid over the other. This was deliberate, documented, and maybe the worst part. I'd spent most of my adult life trying to prove him wrong without even realizing that the game had been rigged from the start. When I came back down, Risa was already sorting through documents on the kitchen table, merger files, board approvals, all of it. She glanced up and gave a soft smile. "You okay?" "Yeah," I said, not sure I believed it. Then she held up a paper. No, not paper. A resume. I took it from her. My sister's name was at the top. "I found it in the old pitch deck," Risa said quietly. "Your dad must have slipped it in when he pitched the transition plan a few years back." She was fresh out of grad school, but somehow already slated for VP of Strategy. I stared at it. All this time, I thought she'd earned it, or at least thought maybe she'd fought for it the way I had. She was never competing, Risa added. This wasn't a meritocracy. It was inheritance in disguise. I didn't blow up, didn't shout. I just exhaled. So I was fighting for a seat at a table that was already reserved. It was a strange kind of relief, like finding out the weight you'd carried all these years wasn't your fault, but it still left bruises. After lunch, I walked back into the office, this time not to sit and stare. I started writing, not a letter, a list. Every project I'd proposed and been told wasn't ready. Every client I brought in that got reassigned. Every raise that never came. Next to each one, I wrote what my sister was doing at the time. Promotions, titles, board seats. A pattern formed. Not a coincidence, a design. I wasn't looking to blow it all up. I wasn't interested in revenge. I was done begging for validation, done performing. Now I just wanted truth and maybe, just maybe, recognition. I started my own folder, not hidden, not angry, just methodical. If they ever tried to play the legacy card again, they'd know exactly what I carried and how quietly I did it. That night, I sat in front of the whiteboard in my office, sticky notes everywhere, names, dates, connections. Risa walked in holding her tea. "You going to tell them?" I looked at her, then back at the board. "Not yet," I said. "I'm going to show them." Then I picked up the journal again, flipped to that page, the one that said I'd drift. I took a pen and crossed out the words. Let's see how that theory holds up in the boardroom. I got home later than intended. Traffic snarled, my mind still echoing Dad's words. By the time I slid into my office chair, dusk was pulling shadows across the floorboards. I opened the journal again, pausing on the pages I had flagged the night before. The ink had smeared in places. Tears or humidity, I wasn't sure. The lines I revisited trembled. He'll likely drift. Lacks the assertiveness my business needs. It felt personal. It felt embedded. A soft knock on the door broke the quiet. Risa stood there holding 2 mugs of tea. "Did you sleep at all?" she asked. I forced a nod, though my head pulsed. She handed me the mug and sat across from me, unspeaking but present. My mind raced. What parts of my life were real? And what part was orchestrated? I scrolled through old company emails, long-forgotten drafts, archived folders I never noticed before. One folder caught me. Legacy files. It hadn't been there until I dug. Inside was a sealed envelope labeled in Dad's handwriting, "For Emily, if I'm gone." I held it in my hands as though it weighed more than words. Opening it revealed notes I never imagined. How Dad intended to favor Vayla, assignments she'd get, how my role would always be secondary. One sentence: Chris needs guidance, not leadership. Another: energy lies in her diplomacy. I felt my chest tighten. I'd lived under this shadow all these years. It wasn't just favoritism, it was premeditated design. I dragged my eyes away and logged into the board archives. There, behind polished press releases, I saw renovation plans submitted under my sister's name, but they bore sketches, handwritten margins, design arcs, lines only I would draw. Her signature sat atop, metadata altered. My heart stuttered. This wasn't luck. This was theft of ownership. My work had been rebranded without my consent. Risa sat beside me in silence. I whispered, "She never earned that credit." Maybe that was the softest roar I'd ever spoken. The weight of betrayal pressed on me, not from hatred, but from the realization I had believed illegitimate praise all these years. I pushed the files aside, closing my eyes. I thought of lessons from my youth. Ask politely, be humble. Don't step on toes. Stay small, stay grateful. I wondered now, had I trained myself to accept erasure, to quiet the voice that could speak up? Risa watched me. She asked quietly, "Did part of you feel okay letting it slip?" My voice cracked when I answered, "Maybe I did, for too long." The shift came not in anger, but in resolve. The fight wasn't just against them, it was for me. Later, under a starlit sky, I walked through quiet streets past the familiar suburban facades. A storefront caught my attention. Strickland Design Architecture. In the display window, a framed rendering labeled by Vayla Strickland. I reached inside my coat pocket, pulled out a printed copy of one of my sketches, and slid it behind the glass. I tapped lightly on the glass. It was subtle but deliberate. Let them question. Let them wonder. The image they see is false, but I'll give them proof. I tried to settle in that evening, but my mind wouldn't quiet. The journal, the resume, the archive files, they lingered like a whisper at the back of my head. Risa set a plate in front of me. She told me she'd found a text message from Jarbo Hollins. Her voice was calm, but I heard something cracking beneath it. "Jarbo texted?" I asked. She nodded, sliding me her phone. The sender's number looked unfamiliar, but the message landed hard. "I saw the plans. I know whose hand drew them." I sipped slowly, not wanting to give my voice away. I told her I'd review my schedule, call legal, think through what to do next. The house felt heavy, like silence had been asked to wait at the door. Earlier that day, as I walked toward the job site, my own phone buzzed while I was stuck in traffic. That message from Jarbo lit up the screen. At first, I thought it was spam. Then I remembered the USB I stashed months ago, the original blueprints no one else ever saw. I cross-checked timestamps, looked at site logs. On one version, design lines matched mine exactly, down to classically subtle flourishes. Yet the final published plan had shifted curves, extra windows, credits listed under someone else's name. Back in the study, I confronted my father under the guise of discussing business. I asked, "Whose signature is on those plans last summer, yours or hers?" He smiled easily. "I approved the plan. I didn't draft it." I showed him metadata, a trail of edits, name changes, file transfers. His expression flickered, but he quickly composed himself. Vayla appeared in the doorway, feigning curiosity. She placed a hand on Dad's arm, trying to cool things, but the air was thick. He looked at me with distant eyes. He said quietly, "Don't poke what you might regret." Later that night, Risa and I sat side by side in my home office. She helped me dig through version control records, logs from servers, archives rarely visited. We found it, an original file with my author tag, unchanged for years. Then a newer one, identical in every design except the signature swapped to hers. The log entries traced the edit to an IP within Dad's home network. I whispered, he had access. He used trust as a weapon. A quiet horror settled in me, but beneath it, resolve hardened. In the early dawn, I checked my inbox. A board meeting invitation had landed overnight. Official announcement, lead design by Vayla Strickland. My jaw clenched. I felt the old fear, the old weight. This battle was far from over. Risa leaned close, voice low. We have to crash that meeting. I nodded, thinking of all the erased years, the stolen credit, the lies wearing a suit. I whispered, let them hear who actually built this, in their own boardroom. We got to the office before sunrise. The streets of Atlanta were still half asleep, but my mind had been awake all night. Risa parked the car, turned to me, and fixed my collar with that same calm precision she used when solving problems. Quiet, steady, certain. Remember, she said softly, truth doesn't need to shout. I nodded. The boardroom gleamed with glass and cold light. Every wall told a story that didn't include me. Plaques, photos, awards, all stamped with Vayla's name. It used to sting. Now it just felt hollow. I sat down, opened my folder, checked the tabs again. The documents were in order, color-coded, every timestamp aligned. I could almost hear my pulse sinking with the second hand on the clock. One by one they arrived. Men and women who'd built careers off my family's company. Some greeted me with careful politeness, others avoided my eyes. Kirtland entered last, slow and deliberate, as if even his silence deserved attention. Vayla was already standing, notes perfectly arranged, posture practiced. I took my seat across from her. The chair felt heavier than it should. No need to raise voices, I told myself. The paper speaks louder. She began her presentation like a politician on the campaign trail. The screen flickered to life. Graphs, slogans, catchphrases dressed up as facts. Over the past year, she said, we've restored stability and vision after a period of internal misalignment. Her tone was warm, confident, and full of calculated restraint. Leadership required courage. Difficult decisions had to be made, and as a team, she paused, smiling faintly at me, we achieved alignment. There it was. The rewrite of history delivered in full color. She'd turned every compromise, every stolen hour of my labor into her redemption story. Kirtland didn't flinch. He just sat there, hands folded like a judge waiting for the verdict he'd already decided. The room filled with polite nods. Vayla spoke of restoring brand trust and modernizing infrastructure. My name came up once, buried in a sentence about executional support. A footnote to my own work. Risa's hand brushed mine under the table. Her touch said everything. Not yet. When Vayla finished, she closed her laptop like a curtain drop. That concludes my presentation, she said. I'm proud of what we've accomplished together. I waited a full beat, maybe two. Then I stood. Thank you, Vayla, for summarizing, I said evenly. Now let's fill in the missing lines. I opened the folder. The first page slid across the table, original architectural drafts with my author tags and timestamps, then the modified versions signed under her name. I spoke slowly, letting the documents do the heavy lifting. These are the design blueprints for the Midtown renovation. Here, I pointed, is the unedited version, and here, I flipped the page, is the one submitted to the city. A few brows furrowed. Another page. Contractor testimony, I said, placing Jarbo's affidavit down. He witnessed the design transfer to me, and the metadata changes that followed. A board member cleared his throat. Are you suggesting the project files were altered after submission? I'm suggesting, I replied calmly, that the design she claimed was never hers to begin with. The air thickened. Vayla's composure cracked just slightly. Kale, she began, voice soft but sharp. You know how collaborative environments work. Files change hands. Names overlap. This isn't about ownership. It's about results. Results, I repeated. You mean the kind that come with my handwriting and your signature? A quiet ripple went through the room. Risa met my eyes, her expression steady. That quiet approval she never gave too easily. Kirtland finally leaned forward. This meeting was meant to discuss leadership continuity, not accusations. I faced him directly. Then maybe leadership should start with truth. I straightened the stack of papers, but my voice stayed level. You always said I lacked fire, Dad. Maybe what I lacked was tolerance for being used. Every head turned toward him. He didn't answer. I went on, not raising my tone. I'm not here for a fight. I'm here for correction. A joint audit of project records, independent verification of authorship, and an acknowledgement in writing. Nothing more, nothing less. For the first time, some of the board members nodded. One whispered to another, scanning the pages in front of them. The silence stretched, not awkward, but heavy with thought. Vayla's mask began to crumble. You're trying to tear down everything we built, she snapped. I shook my head. No, I'm protecting what I actually built. She slammed her hand on the table, the sound echoing through the room. You're ruining our legacy. I gathered my papers, careful, deliberate. If a legacy's built on silence and lies, I said, standing, maybe it's time it broke. I didn't wait for permission to leave. The doors closed behind me with a soft click, but the echo stayed long after. It started with a call I should have ignored. Kirtland's name lit up my screen just as the sun dipped low, casting a long shadow across the kitchen floor. I was rinsing out my coffee mug, the kind of mindless task you do to avoid the things you really need to face. His voice on the other end, soft, unusually so. Kale, he said, I'd like to talk, man to man. That phrase alone made me grip the sink tighter. He only used that tone when he wanted something, when he was setting a stage. Still, I didn't hang up. I know I've done wrong, I know I've hurt you, but I need to say this, face to face. I stood there, phone to my ear, not saying a word. Risa came in, reading the look on my face like it was a billboard. Let me guess. Your dad? She asked, drying her hands. I nodded. She didn't miss a beat. That man only calls when it benefits him. I knew she was right, but against reason, and maybe because of some stupid piece of me that still wanted answers, I agreed. We met at the old church park, the same one where he used to let me kick a ball around while he smoked behind the bench. He was already sitting when I arrived, posture relaxed like we were old friends. Not father and son. Not really. I owe you an apology, he started. I've been blind, missed birthdays. I never saw you for who you were. I sat stiffly, arms crossed, not ready to make it easy for him. I was hard on you, he continued. Harder than I should have been. But the truth is, I didn't know how to be a father to someone better than me. I didn't say anything. I didn't trust myself to. You held this family together. I see that now. You were the glue, and I was the crack in the wall. He reached into his coat and handed me a folded note. I didn't open it. I should have said this a long time ago. There was a pause, a heavy one. Then he said it, almost a whisper. I'm proud of you, son. A long silence followed, and I hated that it got to me. That it pierced something. We sat there for a while before he stood, patted my back, and walked off without another word. On the drive home, I texted Risa. He apologized. She answered a few minutes later. Be careful what you take as real. That night, just after 10, my phone buzzed nonstop. Dozens of tags, mentions, alerts piling on top of each other. I opened one, screenshots of old text messages, mine, ripped from context. Messages I'd sent in anger years ago after another one of his betrayals, laid out like a case file, designed to make me look bitter, unstable, cruel. The account sharing them had no profile picture, no name, just a string of numbers, but Risa ran a trace. It's a burner, registered to a prepaid plan, she said, fingers flying across her keyboard. I felt the blood drain from my face. Whose? She showed me. It was his. Kirtland's. My chest went cold. He set me up, I said, staring at the screen. He planned that whole thing. The apology. It was bait. Risa was already reporting the post, but it had gone viral. People were reposting, commenting, judging. I sat in silence while the internet ripped me apart. He wanted me to respond, I whispered, to say something vulnerable, so he could use it. Risa knelt in front of me. This isn't weakness, she said. This is war. But now you know the rules. I closed my eyes and replayed the conversation. The pauses, the phrases. It was all staged, a performance. We spent the next 2 hours gathering everything. Timestamps, old server data, account creation logs. I recorded a short voice memo for myself. I let myself believe in change, I said. And that's the last time I ever will. I didn't post it. I just needed to hear my own voice, raw, unfiltered. Around midnight, I stood by the sink again, holding the apology note in one hand. I lit a match and let the flame eat it slowly. Ash drifted into the bowl beneath it. Risa watched without speaking. He wants a public fight, I said. Fine. I'll give him one, babe, but not on his terms. Good, she said. Let's show them what real truth looks like. We walked back to the office. The laptop screen blinked awake. A new file sat in the center of the desktop. Kirtland Silent Partner Proof. PDF. I opened it. The sun came through the blinds in thin, even lines across the floor. For the first time in days, the house was quiet. No vibrating phone, no breaking alerts, just the hum of the refrigerator and the smell of coffee. Risa was already up. She set a plate down beside me. Scrambled eggs, toast, black coffee, and didn't say much. We didn't have to. After last night's storm, silence was the only language that made sense. I reread the letter I'd written to the press. Every word was measured, sharp without anger, personal without pleading. It wasn't written for sympathy. It was written for truth. Risa leaned against the counter, reading over my shoulder. It's clear. It's grounded. You're not asking for pity. That's the point, I said. He who controls the narrative controls the truth. I printed a copy, sealed it in an envelope, and sent the email version to every verified outlet in Atlanta. It was time to stop reacting and start reclaiming. By late morning, my phone started buzzing again. Notifications stacked up one after another. News sites had picked it up faster than I expected. Headlines scrolled across the screen. Strickland's son breaks silence. Family feud in the boardroom. Architect accuses father of credit theft. Some comments praised my composure. Others called me bitter. I didn't care. For once, my voice wasn't filtered through someone else's mouth. Then came the counterpunch. Kirtland's office issued a statement within the hour. We are saddened by false claims made by a family member struggling with personal issues. I could almost hear his voice in the phrasing, smooth, patronizing, rehearsed. And Vayla followed suit. She gave interviews, hair perfect, smile controlled, saying I'd misinterpreted family matters and let emotions cloud professionalism. I watched her on the TV, standing in front of the company logo, my design, my geometry, my work, and felt a tight burn behind my eyes. They weren't even denying it anymore. They were reframing it. By early afternoon, a major channel aired a segment, the design credit debate. They sliced my letter into fragments, stripped the context, and ran it alongside clips of Vayla's interviews. The anchor described her as the visionary who modernized the family empire. When they showed a soundbite from me, it was half a sentence, cut right before the point landed, making me sound like an angry son, not a wronged partner. It stung, not the loss of control, but the precision of their distortion. They were masters at this, and I whispered to myself, they're playing chess. I need to think 5 moves ahead. Risa walked in, her eyes scanning the news feed. They think this will make you back down. I looked at her. Then they've forgotten what happens when I stop holding back. We sat down together, spreading documents across the table. Contracts, signed approvals, timestamps, digital blueprints. She suggested we bring in Warden Ellis, an old colleague with a clean reputation, and Jarbo, the contractor who'd already signed an affidavit. They had no reason to lie, and every reason to want the truth on record. I drafted a second statement, not a rebuttal, not a rant, just a release of proof. It included links, evidence trails, and recorded testimonies. The language was stripped bare. No adjectives, no opinion, only data. Risa helped me schedule interviews with independent architects and former clients. I wanted credibility to speak for me, not emotion. By dusk, our small office looked like a command post. 2 laptops open, drives backing up, screens reflecting the quiet fire between us. They made it about perception, I said. I'll make it about proof. Risa smiled faintly. Now that's the man they underestimated. I didn't answer. I was already deep in thought, checking timestamps, rewriting phrasing, aligning every sentence like a soldier sharpening his blade. The night pressed in. Outside, Atlanta lights flickered through the blinds. Inside, I typed the final line of the press release. Tomorrow, I walk into the boardroom under my own name. My finger hovered over send. Risa watched, her hand resting on my shoulder. Once you hit that, there's no turning back. I exhaled. Good. I'm tired of living half-truths. Click. The email flew out, straight into the veins of the media world. I leaned back, eyes heavy, heart steady. Let them spin, I said quietly. I'm giving them evidence they can't edit. We walked into that boardroom with the weight of expectations hanging heavy. Risa's hand squeezed mine just once before the doors closed behind us. My file this time was stark, less fat, more lethal. I'd pared it down to essentials: proof, timelines, witness statements, no emotional filler. The room's eyes shifted as we entered. Board members lined the long table, some faces tight with discomfort, others barely masking anticipation. Vayla came in last, her posture perfect, but I saw the flicker behind her eyes, stress trying to masquerade as composure. Kirtland sat silent at the head, legal advisor beside him, arms folded. Risa leaned close. They're waiting for you to crack. Don't. Vayla rose first. I know the last days have brought questions, she said, voice steady, but family must hold together. Her smile stayed too composed. She spun the narrative. My letter was an emotional outburst, a misunderstanding. She claimed credit had always been shared privately, never stolen. I never intended harm, she added. She leaned into the victim card. As a woman in leadership, I'm often unfairly criticized. She made it sound noble. Kirtland nodded faintly, alliance quietly reaffirmed. Under the table, my fist clenched. She was trying to redirect the narrative with PR finesse. I waited until she paused. Then I played my hand. I slid across the table a clean file, Kirtland's silent partner agreement, signed and time-stamped. I displayed original drafts labeled in my name, then the versions submitted under hers, with editing logs showing the switch. I handed across an email chain from Jarbo confirming Vayla pressured him to remove my credit. Murmurs rose. A senior board member stood. We'll need legal review. Vayla stuttered. That doesn't prove she intended. No, I interrupted, voice calm. But it proves she erased me, intentionally. A shocked hush fell. The tide turned sharply. Board members spoke up. Many demanded Vayla step aside pending investigation. Kirtland cleared his throat, and for the first time since all this began, he spoke. Maybe I did overlook the wrong child. His voice cracked. Heads turned to me. I rose. I'm not stepping in her seat, I said. I never wanted that. I fought for truth. Risa, holding her phone covertly, began recording. My closing statement went live unedited in real time. I spoke plainly. You can steal credit. You can't steal legacy. The video spread swiftly, shared by employees, media, strangers. As the meeting dissolved into a scramble of alliances and defense, Vayla rushed past me. Outside the building, she caught up. This isn't over, she hissed, more fury than fear. I turned. No, it's over. You just haven't accepted it yet. She didn't answer. She walked away. Her heels clicked, like a gavel striking down the last illusion. I woke up to birdsong instead of news alerts. No buzzing phone, no headlines slapping me in the face before I even had a chance to stretch, just the slow light coming through the curtains and the quiet hum of the ceiling fan. Risa was already up, coffee brewed, a second mug waiting. She handed it to me without a word. We sat in the kitchen, across from each other, no need to speak. There was a silence that didn't ache anymore. Not peace, not exactly, but something close. The video of my speech had gone viral. People wrote in, strangers shared stories, some even called it brave. But truth is, I didn't feel victorious. I felt empty, like I'd pulled out a nail that had been stuck in my chest for decades, and now I was just standing there with a hole. Later that day, I drove by the old firm. I didn't stop, just slowed enough to see it. My name was finally etched into the design plaque out front. Cale Strickland, my real name. Not a ghost, not a shadow. A few days went by. And then a week. One morning, Risa came into the study with an envelope in her hand. No return address, but I knew the handwriting. It was from Vayla. No apology, not directly, just one line that stuck. You were right to fight for your name. That was it. No signature, no closure, just an acknowledgement, barely. I read it twice, set it down, then opened the bottom drawer of my desk, slipped it in beside an old photo of us as kids, back when things were simple, back before the world taught us how to lie to survive. Risa stood beside me. Some debts, she said, can't be paid in words, only in who you choose to be after. I thought that was the end of it. Until a few days later, another letter came. This one was typed, formal, mailed through Kirtland's secretary. It was from him. He wrote that he'd been wrong, that image had blinded him, that Vayla's success had made it easier to ignore me. A father's pride can turn into blindness, he wrote. And in my case, it did. There was a check inside, a big one. I tore it in half. Money can't fix absence. But I kept the letter, not for the words, for the effort. Risa quietly framed it and hung it in my study. Just the words. No check, no stain. Weeks turned to months. I opened a small studio in a quiet corner of Atlanta, put my full name on the door. My first project was a public library on the South Side, built for kids who grew up like I did, surrounded by stories that weren't theirs, searching for ones that could be. I brought on interns who had left Vayla's firm, good ones, smart, eager. I wasn't building an empire, just something honest. Risa took over operations. We didn't talk about healing much, we just showed up. Every day. That was enough. The day the library opened, I stood out front and gave a small speech. Nothing rehearsed. Just one line I'd written on the back of a receipt weeks earlier. We don't build to prove our worth. We build to leave light behind. Applause came. Not loud, not explosive, just steady, real. One evening, Risa and I hosted dinner. Nothing fancy, just a few family friends, folks who stuck through it all. Someone raised a glass near the end and said, to building better families, not just buildings. I looked at Risa. She smiled, tired but content. I nodded. Maybe this is what peace looks like, I said. Quiet but earned. And for the first time in a long time, I didn't need anyone's approval to feel home.